Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Resolute Reveal, where we go beyond the deal and into the stories, strategies, and people that shape the commercial real estate world. We are your hosts, Martin Turner and Ray Kang, and today's conversation is one we've really been looking forward to. We're sitting down with someone who's not just built a name in the commercial real estate space, but who's also made an impact here at Resolute RE, not just being a strong producer, but also behind the scenes, mentoring agents, navigating the pressures of this business with grit, and showing up every day with a lot of heart. Eric Broussard is here with us, and this episode is all about the people side of the business, and we will learn how he got into commercial real estate, the moments that shaped him, the challenges he has faced, and what keeps him moving with purpose every day. So welcome, Eric. We appreciate you being here.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited about this. It's a lot to talk about, a lot to cover here, and hopefully some people can get a little insight into what it is on a day-to-day basis of just being a broker and even trying to get into the business.
Well, we're really excited to have you. Definitely, I hope we'll get a lot out of this, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will too. So where should we start? Should we start from your very beginning as Eric Broussard, maybe say from college or something?
You don't want to go back to birth? We can go back to birth.
Birth is fine too. We got the time.
As a young boy, I mean, let's start off around, college time. I think that'd be a kind of a good segue to get into it. I have a bit of a different story than a lot of people that have gotten into real estate. So do you guys just want me to go ahead and start off on it?
Yeah, we'd love that.
Of course. One, let me go ahead and silence these real fast so we don't get that anymore. But two, getting into college was kind of a weird thing for me. In high school, I wasn't the all-star academic brain that I am today. I really didn't know kind of what my path was going to be. I had a couple ideas of what I wanted to do when I was older, but none of those really panned out to what it could be. I wanted to be an architect at one point. I wanted to be a video game streamer at one point. In fact, I ended up kind of going into the acting realm of things. I was on theater scholarship at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and then I auditioned for a agency out in Houston and the U of H group. And so I got into the University of Houston theater group and decided that was what I was going to do. I was big into YouTube. I was big onto podcasts. Back in my day, my buddy and I had stuff that was really growing. And he ended up going out to California and making a name for himself and selling his studio to Disney for $750 million, right? And this is at this time in my life, I thought that was what I was going to do. But fast forward a few years, I go to U of H, I find my wife there, and I decide that I'm going to stay local. I'm not going to go out to LA. I'm not going to make that trip. So I ended up switching my major a few times, couldn't really land on anything. And I decided to just graduate with a corporate communications degree, and I'll figure it out afterwards. After I graduated, I tried insurance for about 2 months. And not to bash any insurance brokers, but I don't know how you do it. It's not the life for me. And it definitely didn't fit what I wanted to do. So I sat down and I talked with my parents, and I was, probably 24 at the time. And my dad was a lawyer. And I decided that I was going to go to law school and take over the family business. Now, to his credit, he did warn me. He told me he hated being a lawyer and he hates his job, and it's a life of constant conflict. And I told him, Dad, it's talking. How hard can it be? Right? Found out once I got into law school that was not all it was. There was a lot more to it. And I did about a year in law school. And on my second semester, I definitely kind of let things slide through. And I ended up failing out of law school. I spent $50,000 in student loans, and I failed after 1 year of law school. It was the first time I ever failed in my life at that big of a magnitude. I always prided myself on whenever I put my mind to something, I was going to go out there and get it done. Whether it was sports, acting, whatever it was, I was going to get into that and be the best at it. So having that hit me at 26, I was married. I just spent $50,000 of me and my wife's money on something that I wasn't even going to have, a law degree. I truly thought my life was kind of over. So I sat down with my dad again, and we kind of thought things over. And he said, hey, man, why don't you look into real estate? And at the time I said, dude, I don't want to be a realtor. That sounds miserable. And, you grow up with these these ideas of realtors, right? You've seen it with your friends' moms or whatever, and you have this stigma against real estate. Oh, they're just a realtor, or whatever it may be. And so that was kind of in my head. And my dad was like, no, why don't you look into commercial real estate? It's a different type of beast. I've got a couple clients under commercial real estate. They do very well for themselves. It's a totally different career than residential real estate. I said, okay, sure. Let's give it a shot. And once again, being me, who I am, I don't want to fail. Right. And after coming off that big loss, I was convinced I was going to make this work. So my wife, fully supported me. She's fantastic. She's been with me for 11 years. So the ups and downs was like, don't worry about anything right now. We understand that the time is going to come that you're going to produce, but I've got it. And so I was blessed to have that behind me. So I got my real estate license. I was working to get my real estate license and I started applying for jobs. And what I didn't know is how dang hard it is to get into commercial real estate. And no one warns you about that. When the residential side, you can kind of get in relatively pretty easy. There's a lot of people that will sponsor a new broker or new agent coming in. But in the commercial side, it's much harder, especially if you don't have ties into the community, you don't have family in commercial real estate, you don't have a degree that, kind of goes into commercial real estate. It's tough. So for about 3 months, I'm looking for a brokerage to take me on. I'm calling CBRE, JLL, NewQuest, Edge, everybody that I can think of. I send off my resumes, I get in the car and I drive there and I knock on the door and I beg for someone just to talk to me. And I mean, beg. I'm sitting there just, hey, give me 5 minutes of your time. Every single one of those people turned me away. And I don't blame them for that. I understand it. I was a 26-year-old kid with no experience. But then I saw the listing for Resolute and I saw a research associate position. I immediately applied and I got in my car and I drove to the office. And keep in mind, I've been looking for a job for 3 months. I had one suit, no money to dry clean it, and I was looking like a ragtag, little doll over here. I walk in, suit's wrinkled, white shirt, dingy as hell, and I go and I talk to Margaret at the front desk, and I say, hey, listen, I've been looking around for a few months. I just applied online. I would just love if I could talk to someone for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I guarantee you will not regret it if you just give me 5 minutes of your time. And Margaret, being the sweetheart angel that she is, who's still our admin today, took pity on me, I guess, and went and grabbed Martin, who was the CEO of the company at the time. And, being a 26-year-old kid and meeting with the CEO.
So you showed up with no appointment. You just came and knocked on the door.
Came and knocked on the door, man.
Gotcha.
I was not getting any callbacks. And I figured that was the best way to do it. And thankfully, Martin was there. And Martin brings me in and we're talking and we're having a good conversation. And I always remind Martin of this conversation we have because it stuck with me. We were having a really good conversation and things were going well. And Martin told me, he said, Eric, I don't like hiring younger guys because you just don't know what you're getting yourself into. This career's tough. It takes about 2 to 3 years to really start seeing some money in this business. And a lot of people quit beforehand and you just don't have the same experience as someone that has this is their second or third career. And I remember looking at Martin and going, well, Mr. Turner, I don't make money now, so there's really not a difference. And, from there, I was able to get a second interview into a third one, and I ended up getting the research associate position. And I've been here ever since.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worthy of noting that if he would not have come into the office that day, if he had just sent in his resume, there is a very, very high likelihood that he would not have ended up with the position. The reason that we were interested in him is that he walked in our front door and, begged our admin to allow him to meet with somebody. And that showed a, just certain degree of grit that was going to be needed to make it in the industry, when we post these ads, we get flooded with resumes. But 99% of the people that we talk to aren't going to make it for one reason or another. And so it's very hard to filter out the strong candidates in an industry like this. And so doing something like that definitely sets you apart. I can think of another intern that we hired around that same time who, he sent in his resume in in like a plastic folder. So he didn't just email it in, and then he didn't just mail it in, but he like sent it in like a FedEx folder. So it stood out, right? And so we opened it up and took note of it. Well, even off of that, we kind of said, no, you know what? This is probably not a great fit. But I did email him directly and said, hey, I don't think we have a fit here, but thank you very much. And then he ended up calling me back and talking to me on the phone and then sending me a letter after that phone call, thanking me for my time and pleading with me to consider him for the job. Well, we called him in, and that person ended up being a very successful employee with us for a very long time, and now is off running his own commercial real estate company and has done well in the business. So it's just interesting, those little things that'll set somebody apart to get your foot in the door. If you are somebody looking to get into the industry, you've got to do something to set yourself apart from everyone else.
100%. And it's like, even when going back to the acting days, right? That was one of the biggest things when you did auditions. You got to make yourself memorable, right? Because everyone's going to come in and do the same thing you're doing. You got to make yourself memorable. And it's kind of funny when you think about it, right? It does play in extremely well into commercial real estate because there's so many good brokers out there, right? That do what you do, that can find sites, that can negotiate deals, that can do everything you do. What makes you different, right? And that's what really sets, I would say the average broker from the great broker. Is you got to be a little different in your market. You got to have something that makes people come to you or offer something that's different.
The only thing I would clarify from that is there are not that many great brokers out there. There are a lot of people that are great at talking the game and that, make themselves sound wonderful in a, 2-minute bite or whatever. But there aren't that many people that will go the extra mile and continue to follow up and show the grit and follow up and really follow through on what they say they're going to do. Mm. And so when it comes to hiring somebody, those types of things, Eric not just sending in his resume, but coming back and pleading, those are things that, bode well for the success of that broker.
All of that, for me, Eric did everything right. You know what I mean? It's he set himself out from the crowd, separated himself out from the crowd, showed his tenacity, showing that he really wanted it. I mean, and that's what I think a good broker does every day. Honestly, the brokerage part is always, it's a never ending process, right? You're always learning something new throughout your career. But like having that kind of character is, for me, like the most important part.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, awesome, man. So you get your foot into the door. So how many phone calls or interviews after that first meeting with Martin did it take for Martin to finally get convinced?
Dude, I'm going to throw Martin under the bus.
The jury's still out.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
There's no jury. This is what happened. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. What happened is I got raked over the coals, man, dude. It's so funny because obviously I came in 7 years ago and I just thought that was the interview process, right? Like you had to come in, interview with Martin and then Joaquin. And then they brought me in for 3 days for a trial period as well, where I was helping out with different tasks and seeing how I'd fit in with the crowd and stuff like that. So I had a 3-day trial period after that too. And I remember at the last day, Martin brings me into this office, into the conference room, and he goes, hey, I'm thinking about putting a restaurant in this location, right? What do you think? And I have no freaking idea what I'm looking at. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, no, if it was me, I wouldn't put a restaurant there because there's a lot of competition right in the area. So I would set myself apart a little bit, maybe go down the road and find a location that, fits a little bit better of our parameters and, has good access to it all. And Martin's sitting there and he's, Yeah. And I'm thinking I'm killing it right now. Martin's got a smile. I was like, yeah, that's good. I thought I was cooking with something. And at the end of it all, Martin goes, yeah, man, everything you said was wrong. And I was like, oh man, that's okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity, sir. I'll see you later. But he's like, no, man, like, listen, he's like, I think you said it was wrong, but you were confident in your wrongness. And you do have to be confident in this business. He's like, you will learn what is right and what is wrong and how to look at these properties. He's like, but if someone puts you on the spot, you need to be sure that you can talk with confidence on something and be able to come back with better answers. And since that situation, right, I've learned the best thing to do in any of those situations where you don't know what you're talking about. It's totally okay to be like, hey, listen, I don't know, but let me go find out, right? I'll go find it out. I'll come back with some better answers and we'll get the details on all of this, but still with the confidence, right? You have to be confident. But yeah, you really threw me for a loop on that one.
Forewarning of the hiring process in Houston.
And by the way, since then, no one else has ever had to come in for a trial period. They were really hesitant on me, it seemed like.
That's not true. We just did it recently.
Because I said it was a good idea.
Yeah. You brought it back. No, that isn't our standard hiring protocol. We did it a handful of times back in the era of Eric starting. And then we hadn't done it for many years for whatever reason where we brought somebody in for a trial period. But we just brought it back for a test in Houston. And I think it was a good idea.
Yeah, I think it works well, man. I mean, especially you've got to find people that match the culture of the office, right? Like too many times do you get some people, and especially like with the culture of an office like Houston, where it is very friendly. Like everyone out here gets along with everyone. We share information, we share deals, and we bullcrap with each other as well. And so you got to make sure that these people are kind of engaged in that same environment and that same culture. If they're not, it's probably not going to be a great fit, and that's totally fine. But it also gives you a little bit of insight into their work ethic, right? We brought this person in. They came in. They immediately asked, "Hey, what can I do to help you guys?" We gave them tasks. They jumped right onto them and even started cold calling that day. They helped a broker with cold calling and was able to get a few leads for them. And if you can see that before you even bring someone on there, that says a lot about the person, because brokers that are even in their first year are still scared to pick up a phone and call somebody. If you're able just to jump in and do that, that says a lot. And we can see a lot in those 2 to 3 days of a trial period.
I mean, honestly, you really can't tell what type of person it is just by looking at the paper, right? And a couple phone calls. And yeah, it's a great idea to have them in. And they might surprise you as well. They might not have looked that great on paper, but the character and, something about them, their personality, their work ethic could really surprise you. And the only way you're going to get to know that is by spending a little bit of time with them.
Yeah, agreed.
No, this is a business that is very, very difficult to figure out on the front side whether or not somebody is going to make it. There is no black and white templated approach to hiring in this business, or one type of personality trait or anything like that. I mean, you have people that are seemingly shy and reserved that wind up being top producers in this industry, which goes against everything that you think of when you think about broker. You think about, Eric, gregarious and outgoing and, guys like that. Well, there are plenty of Erics that make it, but then there are plenty of folks that are much more reserved and, not as overtly socially adept. And yet they develop great bonds with their clients and earn trust. And, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So maybe they don't come out of the gates killing it, relying on their sales skills, but they develop a whole host of other traits along the way that make them, even better than the guy that has it all coming in. So it's interesting. That's one thing I love about this business, is that there is no one size fits all approach.
Yeah, there's no mold. You just got to figure out what works for you. Everybody's different.
So Eric, let's talk about your first year in the business. You were kind of like me. I mean, I was in the arts and entertainment in the beginning of my career. And I mean, it's completely different from doing what you're doing today. So, I mean, what was that experience like? And I'm sure you had a lot of challenges you had to overcome probably, and probably a lot of stigmas that you were carrying as well. You kind of mentioned, the realtor thing is, was kind of something that kind of bothered you a little bit. I mean, I was just thinking about a meme on TikTok where there's this young lady and she's bawling her eyes out. She just got, I know something happened to her, but she's like, oh, now I got to get my real estate license. She's crying. It's like the end of her life, which I totally get. It's like the last resort of, doing something, but
But it is kind of funny, right? Because like
yeah.
we grow up with this joke of, yeah, my mom's a real estate agent, or oh yeah, we all know a real estate agent.
Yeah.
And so I think the part that really kind of like, and I'm not a prideful guy, I'm not. And but what really hurt me was the feeling that I was behind, right? And looking back on it, it's so silly, right? I was 26 years old and I thought I was so old back then. I'm about to be 33 and have 2 kids. Now I feel like older, right? But at 26, I felt like I was so behind. I was looking at my friends who all had, corporate jobs, making 6 figures. My buddy out in California who was just killing it in his sales career. His wife who was becoming big on social media and TikTok for prenatal nutrition. Guys that were in, supply chain management, engineering, all this stuff. And I was an intern making $8 an hour. And that wasn't something I was like, going to go and spread the whole world. I was definitely kind of in a position where I'm like, I want to make this work because I need to prove to everyone that this is a career that is definitely worth the time, worth the effort, and worth the wait to be, rewarded with your work. And so that first year was kind of weird for me. I had never done anything like this. I had no problem getting up and talking to people, right? I took a lot of that from the acting days. I was in YouTube videos. I had been in front of crowds of thousands of people. I've done commercials. I was totally used to that part. So calling and making relationships was fine. The part that really started hurting me was the fact that just the difficulty of getting deals done. Right? Like in my mind, it made a lot of sense, right? You find a property, you agree upon a price, you sign the deal, right? And as we know, that is not the case. There is 1,000 different loops you have to go through. And honestly, I've been doing this for 7 years, and I can tell you that no deal is the same. I've had deals that got done in a month. I've had deals that have taken a year. I have deals that have blown up on the line. I have deals that, came back around and, came back to life. And they were all different. But, the really tough part about that first year was when you first start, you start off a lot more mom and pop clients, right? Hey, we're looking to open up a Mexican ice cream shop, or, hey, I want to open up a music store, whatever it may be, a tattoo parlor, smoke shop, whatever. These really undesirable clients that are doing 3-5-year deals, maybe less than 3-year deals too. And so your fees really aren't that big. And so it's really tough to kind of look at that and be like, where is the money? Like, how am I going to make this work? I'm spending so much time and effort into this. If this is what commercial real estate is, then I can't do this. And I remember was coming up to my first year. Actually, it wasn't my first year. I was about 6 months in. And it was Christmas time, and my parents had been helping me out as well. And I had not gotten a deal done. I was not even close to sniffing a deal. But to be fair, I had just gotten licensed like a month ago. But I remember just feeling extremely fatigued, very exhausted with all the work and effort I was putting into. I was spending hours. I would come in here early. I would stay late. I'd go home and work some more. Just nothing was working out. And I ended up, me and my father had a huge blow up in the mountains. We were in Breckenridge for Colorado. And it was a combination of just stress and anxiety and not knowing what's going to happen here. And looking back on it, my dad was just trying to help. Right. And I didn't see it that way. And I blew up and I told him, forget you, man. I'm quitting my job. When I had every intention of quitting this job when I got back from that trip. Every intention. And I ended up taking that time during the trip. I stayed and thinking about stuff. And I ended up getting a call from a broker in our office that offered me to jump on an account with him. It was a listing, and I hadn't really had the opportunity yet. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give it another shot. I'm going to give it a chance. And I decided to come back and do that. And Now, granted, that listing didn't work out, but people got to see my work ethic, right? And from a different point of view, it was just me for a while, just trying to make things happen. I wasn't working with other people. I wasn't even trying to. I was kind of keeping to myself and just trying to put my head down and work. But then I realized, hey, why don't I utilize the knowledge I have around me, right? The expertise, and see where I can help them. And that's when I got on with Benny and Jim, and teamed up with them and took on some of their more difficult properties. There was a property that was, Martin knows about it, Bear Creek Specialty Center. My God, that was a property. It was a property that was hit by Harvey and was never touched. So the landlord came in there, ripped out all the drywall that got wet and left them as is. And so we had, oh my gosh, Martin, I mean, how much space? It was probably 75% vacant, right? Yeah. Something like that. It was massive. And there was there had to be like 30, 40,000 square feet of retail there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So 30, 40,000 square foot of retail, 75% vacant. Every single space looked like a hurricane came through it, and it did. And it had been sitting on the market for a while. And I was able to take that property and lease it 100%. And we had to get creative on deals. We had to go with lower rent structures, more rent abatement, because the landlord had no TI money. There was no TI money baked in any of these deals either. So we had to get really creative on how we marketed this, who we went after. Heck, we even allowed game rooms and stuff to come in there because we knew, right? We told the landlord, we said, listen, even if the game room comes in and is gone in 2 months, they're going to fix your space up. And then you got a brand new space to lease, which was perfect for us. So we took risks on a lot of different clients, knowing that they were going to come in and fix up these spaces. And if they didn't pan out, well, at least they fixed up our space. And that's what happened. We had some turnover, but then all of a sudden we take it to the market and we've got a white box space ready to go for them. And it's basically brand new. And so even though we had turnover, we were able to replace them real fast. And that was my first big success in this business, was taking a center like that, doing it. And I remember blasting it out on social media and being like, here it is. I did this 75% vacant to 100% full in 1 year. And that was what really kind of started getting my name out there. People started seeing Eric doing deals. I would post every single deal I did. I posted on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever. If a different third-party group had posted about my deal, I'd repost it. I was just consistently marketing myself to let people know Eric Broussard is doing deals. And that's how I started off. I was just getting on these little landlord accounts that were C centers and taking them and flipping them into 100%, which wasn't my favorite thing in the world to do. I didn't love the, C centers. I wanted to do something sexier, but it was starting to make me money, and it was starting to get me a name. And it was in the hungry hippos mode, where I was literally taking whatever I could get. So that was my first year in this. And I would tell you, it was tough, and I did want to give up, but my best advice to people that are trying to get into this is, like, you're going to hit a wall, right? Everyone hits that wall mentally some point. It's the people that climb over that wall or push through that wall, or however you want to say it, and come out the other side, that make it in the business.
And those, little Bear Creek wins, the 1,000 square foot lease, is such an important part of the development and maturation of a broker, because, yes, you were learning how to do leases. You were also proving to the other guys in the office that you are capable of helping them lease their centers. So all of a sudden, people started putting you on assignments because they're like, hey, if you can lease that piece of crap, you sure as heck can help me lease this. This is a lot easier than that. And so all of a sudden, brokers in our office started turning to Eric and saying, hey, help me lease this up. And so he started getting the opportunity to partner with other people. If Eric had looked at Bear Creek as a linear thing where it's like, hey, how much money am I going to earn off of this center? He never could have justified the immense amount of work that it was going to take to lease that up. He would have said, no, this makes no sense. This is stupid. And he very likely would have failed to lease it up. And he very well may not be here today as a broker. He'd be doing something completely different, because he probably wouldn't have been invited onto other projects and never would have developed the know-how and the savvy of how to pick up his own business. There's just all these little things that happen along the way where one thing leads to another, and you kind of just have to have faith in that process that it's not about how much money am I going to make on this next commission, and is it worth my time? If you don't have anything else to work on, it's worth your time.
100%.
It's there comes a time where you have the opportunity cost and say, okay, wait, no. And that happened for Eric, where he said, hey, I no longer can work on this project. It's no longer justifiable to spend this time. But if he had said that from the outset, he would have never made it as broke.
What was your daily mindset at that point? I guess you had somewhat of the beginning of a turning point with that conversation you had with your dad in Breckenridge, and you come back, you're mentally in a different place, but you had the opportunity, somehow you stuck to it. So mentally, what made you turn around at that point?
It's tough to kind of put that on there, because here's the thing is that, and I brought up my parents in this a couple times, my family is, and I want to put this out there, everything I do is for my family. The whole reason I'm in this business, the whole reason I work so hard is for my wife, my kids, and my parents too. And my parents don't benefit off of me, but my parents did invest in me. Right. They invested in my childhood. They invested in making me the person I am today and all this stuff. And I remember when I had this blow up with my father, I said something to him that was probably one of the, being a dad now, if my kid said this to me, I would have been demolished. And I remember looking at him dead in the face, and we're screaming at each other. And I said, everything I've ever done is to make you proud. And then I slammed the door in his face and I walked away. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, do I really feel that way? Right. Or am I just lashing out? Because my dad's never forced me to do anything. My mom's never forced me to do anything. I've wanted to do this for them. I wanted to make them proud and be like, hey, this is the guy that we raised. This is the young man that we raised, and this is who he is today. And so I think when I came back from that, I took a seat, and my wife and I talked, and I was like, I'm going to prove to everyone that I can do this, and that this is not just, Eric's flaking out or whatever it may be. There's obviously a career in this. Otherwise, people wouldn't be doing this. So I can make this happen. I can make this work. I just need to change up my approach, which is what then segued me into that idea of I need to stop putting myself in a little box and putting my head down and calling, and I'll let people know what I'm doing. I need to engage with my brokers and engage with my seniors and ask them questions and whatnot. And I'll be damned if I don't go and ask Martin or Joaquin or anybody in this office a question several times a day to this day. I had to change it up. I had to change up my mindset to who I was, because like I said, for the longest time, it was just, Eric, go out there and do it. And so I took that bit of advice from myself and I applied it to, going forward into brokerage. And I listened to the advice I got from my colleagues and my peers, taking the calls. And instead of, just if the call didn't make sense, not pursuing it, figuring out how it could make sense. Hey, this location won't work for you. Okay, that's fine. How can I help you elsewhere? Right? What else are you looking for? Start flipping people into tenant rep. And that was kind of the segue for me getting into tenant rep, right? And I really, really loved tenant rep, and I still do. It's why it's all I do now. It's tenant rep. Tenant rep was kind of what really saved me in this career, because I started really finding a purpose in commercial real estate. For a long time, it was just a job, right? I got to go and lease up a center and do it. But in tenant rep, right, I see it differently. I'm working with first-time franchisees, people who have had dreams their entire life to open up their store of a coffee shop, or, hey, we're going to do an arcade, or whatever it is, these fun little stories these people have. And I get to be part of that process, right? I get to be part of that dream and help them achieve it and find the location. And it's great to point to people and be like, yeah, I helped that person. One of my favorite accounts is Cheater's Creamery. And Cheater's Creamery was an account that called in. They called into our office. And I remember like it was yesterday talking to the guy there. And he told me, he goes, hey, so listen, I'm looking for a food truck location. I have not been able to find a broker to help me. I really need some help. I've got a business plan. I've got a marketing deck. I've got all this, and I really want to make this happen. Can you help me? And I knew that food trucks were a pain. I got it. But once again, at this time, I don't care. I'm doing whatever it is. And I said, hey, man, why don't you send me over your stuff and let me take a look at it? I'd love to see if I can help. And he sent it over me. We went out to go meet, and we turned out, to be very similar. Both video game nerds, both anime nerds, all this type of stuff. We connected on that level, and I loved his concept. It was a really cool concept of, hey, cheat on your diet with ice cream. And I said, you know what, man, let's make it happen. And I took it, and I started that's a lot of cold calling on a food truck, because they don't just market food truck spaces. So I'm calling everyone I can to get a food truck deal done. We eventually find a spot to do it. Landlord doesn't pay my commission. Right. Says, I don't pay commission on food truck. So I had to go back to my guy and say, listen, man, like, do you mind paying me on this? He said, not a problem. I'll pay you whatever it was. It was $1,500. I said, cool. And what I didn't know, though, was how successful he was going to be. He blew it out of the park at that food truck. He killed it. I think he was doing $350,000, $400,000 a year out of a food truck.
Wow.
For ice cream. And we ended up, he calls me back. We stayed in contact because, hey, man, I'm ready for a brick and mortar location. I said, great, let's go do it. We signed a 10-year deal at a brick and mortar location. He goes, I'm ready for my second brick and mortar location. I said, great, let's do it. Another 10-year deal at a brick and mortar location. And now we're talking about franchising. And it's something that I love to talk about, because so many people would have just said, hey, dude, I don't want to deal with that. Right? It's a food truck deal. But you just never know. And once again, that came back to me just being open and being open to a different idea and listening to people. I don't think it was being desperate. It was just, how can I make this work? Right? Always thinking on these phone calls, how can we make this work? How can we make this deal work? How can we make whatever location work? And that was really got me into the tenant rep side of things. And we're still running with deals now till this day with him.
Yeah. No, I remember when you made that transition from landlord to tenant rep, and a switch went off where it was like, oh, wow, this guy's found his niche. Like he really talks about his job and about, the deals he's working on in a totally different way. And so I remember saying, no, man, that's your niche. Go for it, man. The light bulb went off. And so, yeah, so I've seen people play on both sides of the fence and do it well. But for the most part, there is a certain type of personality that gravitates toward one side of the fence or the other. They are very different activities, different day-to-day things. And I think Eric really enjoys the deeper personal relationships that you develop with your tenant rep clients and the story behind it and everything. And then just the day-to-day activity is different, right? You're not picking up the phone all the time, talking to people calling in. You're, focused on your clients' objectives of finding specific spots and dealing with brokers that all over the city. And I think that Eric just is well suited to that side.
Yeah, it's like a hunt, It's much more fun in that sense. And when I decided I was going to make that flip, right? I was talking to Martin and Joaquin about this way back when. I was like, I want to start making the flip over to it. And what's funny is that, my second year was COVID. and I really thought the whole sky was falling for me. I said, wow, I was just starting to kind of ramp up, get things going, and COVID hit. And I was like, dang. And I still had some landlord accounts, and I had some tenant rep accounts I was working on. And I remember I was, Martin, we're going to talk about this, but I was sending out blasts during COVID, and I'm trying anything, right? No one's working at all. Like, I'm calling everyone. They're like, no, we're not doing anything right now, man. And I'm like, totally fine. But I'm sending out blast after blast after blast. And I remember getting an email from a broker, and he told me, he goes, Eric, I know you haven't been in the business long, but, this is really disrespectful in this time. You shouldn't be doing this. There's a lot of people losing business, and and whatnot. And I'm over here like, man, I'm just trying to live, dude. Like, I'm trying to put some bread on the table, at least something. I think I'm surviving off icebreakers at this point. And it's, it's so funny because that same call I got that day, I got another call from a brand coming into Houston, and they were like, hey man, we see that you're super active on blasting. We want to do like 5-6 locations in Houston. No one else is picking up the phone right now or talking. You want to help us? And I said, please.
Let's go. Yeah.
Please. Would love that. But it's one of those things, man, where if you want to get into something, you just got to throw yourself fully into it. You can't just kind of teeter on the sidelines, and no matter the market, there's always going to be a silver lining to make money somewhere.
You got a really great story of your character and your attitude, tenacity, just going at it. And then the turning point where it gave you like that extra kick to stay in it. And then with that, you found your specialty. You specialized in something, which is really important, right? So is there a deal story from that tenant that you started working with from COVID?
Man, there are so many stories from that tenant. You just opened up a can of worms.
Okay.
Man.
Give us one at least, right?
So
is there a story?
Yeah. Okay. So listen, the client was funny. They were actually really fun guys. I will give them this, but it didn't work out the way it should have worked out. And I'm going to tell the story, and I'm not going to name the brand, but everyone will know it once it's done. But this brand came in, and they were a group out of state that, was trying to buy up a lot of second-gen restaurants. And we were just, okay, let's go. So we're putting them into different restaurants and whatnot. They ended up hanging their hat on a professional athlete in Houston that was a big name. And I don't think it matters if I say it was Deshaun Watson. Yeah, it was Deshaun Watson. And if anyone knows about Deshaun Watson, they understand what probably happened in this, because we open up these stores and Deshaun's at all the openings and they're like, it's Deshaun's store. He's out here. He's making it work. Blah, blah, blah.
Eric's putting out pictures of him and Deshaun on social media.
We're hanging out. It's awesome. I felt like the biggest dog in the room, man. And I really thought, I was like, this is it, man. You've made it. A month later, Deshaun announces he wants to leave the city and get a trade. That was the first hit. The second hit was all the lawsuits that came afterwards, the 22 allegations. So we started getting picketers and, boycotts outside all these stores. So keep in mind, I'm riding on cloud nine. I think I'm the bee's knees. I just opened up 5 stores for a brand. They all closed within a year. Every single one of them closed within a year. It was like, I remember talking to a broker about this like a couple months ago. And I was like, he's like, you remember when you ran with that guy? I was like, yeah, I feel like it's a big black eye on me. And he's like, dude, it wasn't you. I was like, yeah, it makes sense, but still it is kind of a little funky situation. But those guys, I mean, like it kind of comes down to, who you work with, right? Yeah. Too, right? Because listen, at the end of the day, they were good to me. They treated me well and stuff like that.
You couldn't see that coming either, right? I mean,
percent, right? You could not see that coming. But I will say this too, after that whole situation, it made me think about like, you want to make sure the people you're running with are working within ethical bounds. And, there's been a multitude of clients where I just couldn't get behind kind of the things they were doing behind the scenes. And it just didn't sit with me. And so, even no matter how desperate I'll ever get for a deal, I definitely want to make sure that I'm working with people that are working towards a goal of success, not trying to make a quick buck, because your reputation matters a lot in this market and in every market. If everyone knows in commercial real estate, everybody. I could list off 100+ brokers in Houston alone that I all have close relationships with. And I never want to put myself in a situation where people are like, oh, Eric, he's kind of a broker, he does some sketchy things. Like, no. So I make it, that was kind of my first little like insight into that situation, because the brand also didn't drop him. And they were like, nah, we're good. Don't worry about it. And I was like, okay, man, you're fine. But that was a good one.
But just like we talked about with the shopping center earlier, that account ended up leading to other restaurant accounts. So, they were looking for in-cap restaurants, very common search, right? In-cap with patio type locations. And then right after that, Eric went and was able to get, three or four other similar, fast casual type of concepts, and some that he's running with to this day. So it was another example of one thing leading to another. And even though that account didn't have a long shelf life, it has a hell of a story, not a long shelf life. But
story you tell at parties.
It certainly has led to a lot more success in the industry.
That must have been a little bit of an emotional roller coaster for you too.
Dude, it was so funny because COVID was such a
emotional time regardless too.
It was all over the place, man. And I realized after we got out of COVID, I was like, look, dude, if I can make it through COVID and be successful, then I'll never have a problem in this business. And it's something that when I coach all of my mentees now, I always let them know that. I'm like, we talk about different markets, like the market that we're in right now with construction costs going up and tariffs and whatnot. People are kind of scared, right? And I say, listen, guys, there's always going to be a silver lining into a market, and you got to figure it out. You got to figure out what's going to make sense into it all. And if you can find the money there and you can find the success and work yourself out of that type of market, you'll be successful in this business. Anything like that, you can make it happen. I mean,
well, so let's talk about that for a second, because actually that's an interesting part of Eric's story, is that he was, he built himself into a strong broker, found his niche in tenant rep, started having some good success, and and then he really showed an aptitude for wanting to lead other brokers and train other brokers. And this was something that he regularly was doing on his own, even before we promoted him at all. He was working with the newer brokers in the office and just kind of, took a liking to that sort of thing. And then Eric came to me one day and said, hey, man, what would be great is if we created a more formal system to train our, incoming interns, and made a lot of the things that get skipped in their development process just sort of standard practice. And if, hey, I could fill these shoes. I can have regular meetings with these people and one-on-one meetings with them, and kind of obviously the office leaders are responsible for that. But I am also someone that they can call and get direct advice on deals, or just on, general development angst. Hey, I'm thinking I might not be able to make it. What did you do in these situations? That sort of thing. And so, Eric, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of enjoyed the coaching aspect of everything, right? I loved helping out the other people. I mean, I'm a guy that, I thought I was going to get into nonprofit stuff before I got into commercial real estate, because I like helping, right? I like
commercial real estate sometimes is considered nonprofit. So
can be, yeah.
That's honestly fair. I'm still there, right? So, but I looked at the, kind of the progress we were having at the time. We were having a little bit of turnover in a lot of our offices, where people were mostly the feedback was that they just felt like they didn't know what to do, right? Like, come in here and you can talk and you can go out there and do stuff, but there's not everyone that has that same mentality. I mean, hell, if we think about it, I didn't have that same mentality when I came in. I was just trying to do stuff on my own. It took me coming to a come to Jesus moment to realize, hey, I need help, and go out and seek it. And, principals are busy, market leaders are busy. A lot of senior brokers are busy. They're willing to help. And that's the nice part about Resolute, is we're all willing to help. But if you don't go in there and ask the questions, you're not going to get it. So why not just thrust the questions upon them? And so when I came up with this idea of let's change it up, right? The whole goal was to build the company up, right? To get stronger brokers that have a faster starting rate than others. And after the first year of this, we saw that. You look at the production numbers of the people prior to the program to after, it was a big difference. And we had a lot more retention too. The brokers were staying on, and they were working and becoming top brokers in their offices. And honestly, what I do is I don't overload them with a bunch of X, Y, and Z, right? I'm not going to be breathing down their neck and everything like that, but I want to be a sounding board for them, right? We have our weekly calls where we get on there and we'll talk about the market. We'll talk about different deals that are going on. I want them to talk about the deals that they're on right now. We'll talk about different tools that we have and how to better utilize them. Then after that, we have our monthly one-on-ones, which are really great because I get to see from their point of view, what deals they're working on, where they need the help at, what's working for them, what's not working for them, and guide them in a direction to be successful. After their first year, I switched them to a monthly call because the weekly, they don't need them at the weekly anymore. A monthly little reminder to go over a few deals and talk about the market, totally fine. But we continue the one-on-ones after that. And that process, and they have me. They're always going to have that relationship with me. And I prided myself in this office not to just have a relationship with my brokers in my office, but I've got relationships in every single office. I mean, Ray, me and you have a great relationship. Chris and Brian up in Dallas, Joey and Mike over in Austin. Davis Payone's one of my best friends in this office and outside of it too. You know, Rob and all the guys in Albuquerque. I make a point to do that because I want people to come to me, ask questions. And in a little bit of a selfish way, I want to be the guy they talk to because I want to be able to help them here too. Right? It just builds your pipeline, but it also helps build the company. If the company is doing great, then you can promote yourself off of what the company's doing. And, you know, there's a little story, you know, there's a broker that we have in our company that I've been mentoring for about 2 years now, and he's great. I'll leave his name off the podcast, but, you know, he has been kind of on a roller coaster up and down. And we had a talk about 2 months ago, and he was very close to quitting. And, he's like, I just don't know, man. I'm not making money. I'm not doing this. And I said, man, are you working? And he goes, yeah, I'm working. I said, tell me about your day. How do you do your day? And he listed out his day to me. And I said, man, you are wasting time. Like, there's so many parts of your day that you're just not doing what you need to do. You're not making your calls. You're not going after leads. You're not picking up the phone. Like, I know you tell me that you stay late to 6 p.m., but then you go home and you don't work. Right, man, early on in your career, you can't do that. This is a 24-hour job, right? Granted, do I answer emails at 2 a.m? No. But if I'm on the weekend and there's a call that comes in that I need to take care of or an email that comes in that I need to take care of, I'm going to have to take care of it because it's a 24-hour job. And I bluntly told him, I said, man, if you're not going to work, then this probably isn't going to be for you. And I'm not trying to be a jerk in this situation. I'm not trying to be that guy. I want you to be successful. I really, really do. But if you aren't going to put in the effort to do this, which I'm telling you, this is what you have to do, then it's not going to work out. And I said, you decide what you want to do. Come back to me in a few days and tell me if you want to leave. Yeah. Came back in a few days and he said, I'm going to give it all I got. Our next monthly follow-up, he calls me and he goes, dude, thank you. And I said, what's going on? He goes, you're right. I wasn't doing what I needed to do. I'm making it happen now. And I've got 3 deals under contract, all $1 million plus. I've got another 2 listings I'm about to pick up. And I'm feeling more energized than I ever have been. And that's the type of stuff I live for, man. Like, that's what I want to see. And it feels so good to be like, yeah, man, like I knew you could do it. You have all the skills to do it. Just go out there and do it. It's easy as that. You just got to do it.
Was there something that you saw in him that maybe he wasn't seeing in himself beyond the process?
You know, here's the thing. He had every skill to be a good broker. And you can see that, right? He's a likable person, great personality, you know, has the social media mindset as well and is able to kind of keep pushing and pushing and pushing. The part where he was lacking, in my opinion, was the maturity, right? The maturity to understand that I need to work harder. You know, it's easy to feel like you're working hard. Like, heck, some days I feel like I busted my butt out there. That I look back and I'm like, man, you sent out like 6 emails and make 3 calls. Like, did you really work that hard today? But the maturity to look into yourself and say, I'm not doing everything I can. And so I knew if he would just mature into that and get into it, he'd be a good broker. And I'm hoping he has a killer year this year. From what he's telling me, it's been great. I actually told him the other day, I said, you know, hey, you're 2 years in, you're almost 3 years. You don't have to be on the monthly calls anymore. You know, I'm letting you free, right? You still have me. And he calls me the other day. He goes, hey man, I would still love to do the one-on-ones with you just so I can kind of keep clearing my head on it all. I said, oh, anything you want. That just feels good to me. I like being able to point at these people and say, hey man, I helped you be successful. I want you to be successful. I want you to be more successful than me. It's not that hard, you know? not that good of a broker. Yeah, I mean, it's just a fun thing to do, man. Like, I love seeing people progress and get better.
Are there any routines or rituals or something that you recommend to the newer agents when they kind of graduate from research associate to, getting on the 2 feet, things that like they should do?
Well, I think one of the big things that a lot of the research associates it's a big mistake, and we've talked about it, Martin, a few times, is as soon as they become brokers, you barely see them in the office, right? And they're like, oh, I'm my own broker now. I can work from home or do whatever it is. And you're not wrong, but you're also not at that point yet. And I mean, I've been doing this for 7 years, and there's all the top brokers in our office, I think, are in the office every single day. I'm in the office every single day. Am I here 9 to 5? Most likely not. But, I've got stuff I got to go do. I got to go out and tour or look at properties and whatnot. But I try to make it a case to be in the office every single day. There was a time about a year ago where I was, maybe doing 3 days in the office. And I remember talking to Joaquin about this, and he's like, man, you need to be in the office more. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I do. And when I got back into the office, my production started going up again. Being in the office, being around people, being able to bounce ideas off of each other and stuff, it makes a ton of difference. Once again, I understand I'm still very new into this business at 7 years, but I still sometimes feel like I have no clue what I'm doing, And if I didn't have Martin or Joaquin or Jim or whoever else is in this office at the time to go talk to and ask that out, I'd be lost. So that's one of the things that, I make it very clear, make time to be in the office, make time to be here and get things done and continue the calling, right? It's easy for you to stop calling when I'm not because I ask all my people I mentor to send me your 50 calls late. I mean, Ray, over at your office, I got them sending me 50 calls a day or 50 calls a week at least, and hoping they go more. There's a lot of different things you can do to continue to be successful, but being present and continuing what's working is what makes sense. Rob Powell put it perfectly one time. He said, when you go and going to the gym is a ritual, right? You got to continue to go to the gym. The minute you stop going to the gym, you get fat again, right? You don't want to be fat. You want to get fit.
Yeah. I mean, our business is also essentially, it's an apprenticeship, right? I mean, you got to learn. There's no books really for this. I mean, you can read a book, but again, like you said, every deal is different. Every situation is different. And the really way to learn from this is from your mentors or the senior agents around you who've been through a lot of that experiences before and kind of have that living library that's in front of you. And you're not going to get that from staying at home or trying to work remotely, especially in what we're doing, right?
Yeah. 100%. I mean, and then who would school Martin in ping pong if I wasn't here? I mean, who?
Lies.
Well, I guess Matt would school you in ping pong.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, work-life balance, right? So you have activities. Like, what do you do to ease off some of the stress of daily work?
Yeah, I'm gonna put myself in the big old nerd category right now.
Okay.
And I am a huge video game guy. Video games have been a huge part of my life, my entire life. I'm also a big anime nerd. I love manga and anime and all that Japanese culture. I also love sports as well. Martin and I have a great, friendly competition here. I mean, we'll be playing horse, or we'll play, office golf, or we'll play ping pong, or we'll go out and play, pickleball, whatever it may be. But I would say, over all of that, right, I've got a beautiful 2-year-old son. I've got a brand new child coming Tuesday. I've got a wonderful wife, and just being able to
coming Tuesday. Are you kidding? Wow.
Tuesday.
Congratulations, man. Jeez.
My daughter will be here Tuesday.
Awesome.
And so, being able to spend time, and that was a huge thing for me in whatever career I chose was, hey, I want to provide for my kids and my family, but I also don't want to miss the baseball games or the choir concert or the ballerina recital. I want to be able to make it to every single one of those and be there like my parents were, right? My parents both were self-employed. My mother was an interior designer. My father was a lawyer, and they didn't miss a damn thing. They were there for everything. And so I've got my little hobbies that I do. And when it's been a tough week, I will put on World of Warcraft and play for hours on end. I will read my mangas, I will watch my anime, and then I will go and get in the pool with the kids and my wife and have a wonderful time.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that about you.
Man, dude, I went to Japan last year, and that was the whole deal. I mean, here, I don't know if y'all even see this, but this is my little setup at home here. As you can tell, I've got video games,
Sick.
all my character stuff in the back. That's my baby boy right there. So
I love gaming too, man. But like, if I start, I get way into it that it's just like it's hard for me to concentrate on other things. So I choose not to start. But yeah,
dude, it was a big part of my. I mean, dude, I was, just to take a sidebar here. There was times in my life when I was ranked in Call of Duty. You know,
really?
I was in World of Warcraft. I was just talking about that. I'm one of the top players on my server and everything. And World of Warcraft
has to be like one of the most successful games in like.
Oh my God, it's
still there too, right? It's like
it's so fantastic, and we're doing a promo for World of Warcraft right now, by the way. So if you're looking to play, you let me know.
I've been pretty quiet in this conversation.
Yeah, it's because you're lame, dude. I tried to get Martin to come over all the time, play video games with me. He won't do it.
I think Martin will be into it, actually.
Dude,
if he starts.
I brought my Nintendo Switch to the office. We can hook up, play Super Smash Brothers right now.
I played Tetris.
God, dude, you are old.
Yeah. Tell us about Eric Broussard today and where he's going in the future.
Yeah, man. You know, obviously, once again, I've been here my entire career. I have no intention of leaving, you know, and I've told Martin this, you know, the same thing. It'd be like leaving a family. You know, there's so many great memories I have here. And, you know, the fact that Resolute was the one willing to give me a chance, I have a lot of loyalty to, right? Especially when no one did. No one wanted to give me a chance. And those brokerages that didn't want to give me a chance then, you know, asked for me to come over there now. And there's no reason for me to leave. The platform that we have, the support that we have, the people that I work with every single day makes this job just great. It's fantastic. I enjoy coming into the office. I enjoy getting to talk to all of my colleagues and do deals with them. It's fantastic. And going forward, I've now fully immersed myself into the tenant rep. I do not do any more landlord rep. I have one client that is just one of my very good friends and that I do help with his landlord rep, but I have a junior on his properties to really give it the attention that it needs because all my time is dedicated into tenant rep. I do a lot of local work out here along with national. So one of the things that I've really prided myself on is the relationships I built nationally. And so when brands come in and they need a local broker, you know, I'm the local broker they're using. And I'm out here finding the sites and helping negotiate the deals and work with these clients. And it's been fantastic. But on top of it, I have my national work, which is, you know, like for PJs, for instance. I've been doing PJs deals for 40 years. They're like a family to me as well. I love having that balance of local and national work. I love being able to come out here and just speak with landlords and brokers and whatnot. And I'm going to continue on to that deal here. My goal with Resolute is to hopefully be here for my entirety of my career. If things change and that has to happen, I have no plans of leaving right now. And everything that I've got working for me has just been fantastic. And so there really is no reason to bounce out of here. But the idea is to continue to grow the brand, continue to grow who Resolute is and what we do and the culture that we have here. Because I think that's one thing that's really unique to Resolute is, man, we've got that small boutique feel, but with that larger national presence. So I don't feel like I'm just another person in this brokerage. I feel like I know everyone and I know everyone's personalities and I know their backstories. It just feels like you're close with all your friends here. You're doing deals with your friends. And that's a fantastic, fantastic feeling to go to work with.
That's fantastic. Well, great, man. We're so glad to finally get you on the show and hopefully we could have you on again soon. Congratulations on the new baby, man. It must be exciting.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. It's a little scary. But, you know, that girl's going to be the death of me, man. I'm telling you right now.
Another random fact, all of his family's names start with E. So
yeah,
it's Eric and Erica and Ian.
Ian with an E.
Ian.
And then Emilia, and her nickname will be Emmy. So
Emmy, I like it.
Yeah, we got the whole E's lined up there, but I couldn't think of any more E names, so no more kids. You really pigeonhole yourself when you get into that.
I don't know. Well, check ChatGPT. They'll come up with a whole list for you, man. You gotta.
I could just do something creative like Elon did, name him like a fraction or something.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Well, so glad to have you on the show. I'm sure we'll make sure to reach out to Eric if you need any help in Houston, and I'm sure they could find you on LinkedIn and the other social media platforms as well. So feel free to reach out to Eric and say hi. I will bet he'll be glad to hear from you. So.
Yeah, and I'd like to put out there also, we talked about the recruiting and the program. We are still looking for people in our Dallas office, in our Austin office, in our Houston office, and our San Antonio office. So if you're looking to get in there and you've heard my story, you understand it all, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you about it.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Resolute Reveal. Huge thanks to Eric Broussard for pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to succeed in this business, from navigating uncertainty to building trust one relationship at a time. If you're in commercial real estate or just looking to better understand how grit, mentorship, and ethics shape real success in this industry, I hope you took something valuable from today's conversation. If you'd like to connect with us, learn more, or explore how Resolute RE can support your real estate goals, visit us at www.resolutere.com. That's RESOLUTRE.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you found this episode helpful, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send it their way. Until next time, thanks for tuning in to Resolute Reveal.